Welcome back, everybody. So this week I'd like to actually keep this to be a little bit of an actual shorter video rather than going long. So I haven't prepared that much to talk about because it seems like even if I have nothing to talk about, I can at least fill a few minutes. And I don't really want these to go over 10 minutes because then they start to be a bit of a burden to actually watch, and maybe a burden to edit as well. Anyway, so what did I do this week? So this week I did a little bit of some technical work that was kind of interesting but also frustrating, which is that for the longest time there's been an issue for at least some of the playtesters in that the mouse movement was like super sluggish. So this primarily has to do with that in order for me to try to keep the mouse movement the way that it is on your desktop in the game, I have to do a bunch of transformations to the amount that you move the mouse whenever I am going to work with that value. So I do this because I don't want to just take the mouse position on the screen and then map that directly into the game. Because I want the mouse cursor to be in world space. The reason for that is that when you're clicking on puzzle panels in the game, the camera might be moving a little bit, but you don't want that to affect your aim towards those panels. I'm trying to think of a better way to explain it. I think the best way to explain the difference between screen space and world space is to show you them side by side and explain what's happening. So in this example here, we have the cursor in screen space, which is kind of what you would normally expect. You basically just have your mouse cursor and you move it around. But if I then walk around and the camera starts moving around, you'll see that the cursor in screen space, so on the screen, stays in the same position, but appears to move backwards relative to everything in the world. So it stays in the same position on screen, but in-game is moving. Whereas if I lock the cursor into world space, which is like this, then when the player moves, the cursor would move on screen relative to a fixed point, but in world space it would stay in the same spot. Anyway, as I said, that seems a little bit counterintuitive, but actually when you play it, it makes a lot of sense. Anyway, that's a little bit beside the point of what I actually had to fix this week. So the issue was for a lot of people that wasn't working very well, and I would have to let them dial in the mouse sensitivity wherever they wanted it to be because it wouldn't be exactly what it was when they moved their mouse around on the desktop. This was a really hard issue to track down because I couldn't manage to duplicate it on my own machine until I bought another monitor, and then when I have one monitor that's a 4K monitor and one monitor that's a 1080p monitor, so I've got like a mixed DPI scenario. So, you know, one of those screens, everything gets scaled up by Windows like 175%, and one of them's just at 100%. So the problem I found out is that, okay, so part of the problem came from that I have to do a DPI transformation for the game, and this is mostly based on your resolution versus the game resolution, although it may, but I don't think it includes the actual Windows DPI, but mostly we're concerned about game resolution versus screen resolution. Okay, so I'm going to try to explain what needs to happen when you move the mouse to figure out the amount of movement on the screen versus how much the actual cursor should move in the world of the game. So first we take the amount of pixels that your mouse has actually moved on your screen. And that needs to get mapped into the window of the game. So if you're moving a mouse and it's outside of the window of the game, we ignore that. Then we need to take, for example, if the window of the game is full screened, but running at a different resolution than the actual monitor resolution, Then we have to do some scaling there to account for that. Then we have to take the point that we figured out in the actual, or we have to take the movement there, and then we have to map that into the actual world space, which depends on how zoomed in the camera is, because 1 pixel in the world is not the same as 1 pixel on the screen because we're zoomed in. So 1 pixel might take up multiple pixels. So then at that point we're done and we can just make that movement for the cursor. So the issue that I was having, I think, was with the scaling between a window that might be a full screen window but running at a resolution below the actual native resolution of the monitor, but being scaled up to that resolution. The problem there was that Unity doesn't actually tell me the information about the monitor that the game is running on. It only tells me the information about the main monitor. I can find out information about all the monitors, but I don't necessarily know which monitor the game's running on, so that doesn't really help me. So in order to actually implement this, I needed to implement a Windows32 API call to get to the information about the monitor that the current window is on. And this is a little bit of a nightmare because it's very poorly documented how you interface between Unity and like the Win32 API. But as all good programmers do, I managed to find some post somewhere on a forum where somebody had wrote some code like this, and then I based my code off of that. Naturally, this did not go well at first, and I had an issue where it would work in the editor, but then it wouldn't work in a build. And finally I figured out that for, I believe, the screen to monitor API call, I needed to not use the monitor info ex struct, but just use the regular monitor info struct. I'm not sure why this is. The only difference there is that the ex struct has like a string at the end of it that gives the monitor a name, and there may have been some weirdness with trying to marshal that string across from the Win32 API side into the Unity C# managed API side. But anyway, I didn't need the name anyway, so I just used the regular struct and then it worked. Anyway, that's an obscenely complicated explanation of that, but maybe it gives you at least a little bit of a taste of the quagmire that's involved with trying to solve some of these technical issues. I may actually try to do a written devlog explaining in better detail how that works, and so you can kind of maybe read that and also watch this video if it's not quite clear from just the video, my explanation of what happened there. If you actually care, because maybe that's just too technical and you couldn't care less. On a more fun note, I've started doing the art for the art gallery area. So this could get hairy to talk about. So Tuesday on stream I did the concept art for the exterior and something like concept art for at least one interior floor of the building. However, that didn't end up actually working very well because when it came time to put the actual puzzles that I have in the game in that floor, it didn't exactly fit, plus I wanted to have certain puzzles on certain floors. Anyway, so I did that concept art, and I've started on building out the layout in terms of actual assets to go in the game, but I actually haven't started detailing those assets. So that should happen over the weekend or next week. I'm not sure exactly when that'll get done. I still want to do the puzzle design stuff for the ending of the game, but I haven't gotten started that much on that. I've still gotten well, I got more started than last week, I'll say that. I have sort of cracked a little bit of what I think one of the major mechanics there for the ending will be, but I haven't figured out everything, and it kind of all needs to mesh together in a way that's a little bit complicated to figure out. In any case, yeah, that's pretty much everything that I did this week, and I had thought of a topic that I might want to talk about on here in my topic of the week. Apologies, it's a little bit rainy out here, so you might hear some gusts of wind or rain, or who knows. So I had thought of a topic for topic of the week, but I think this video is probably long enough as is, so we'll save that topic for next week, and that'll give me some more time to think about it and figure out a better takeaway to have from that discussion. But in any case, thanks for joining, and I hope I'll see you again next week. And until then, subscribe to the channel, like the video if you liked it, wishlist the game on Steam, and I keep forgetting this, follow me on Twitter at mvandevender, and follow the game on Twitter at Taiji Game. Anyway, I'll see you next week.